Ah, humans. Those peculiar fleshy creatures from that unremarkable blue marble in the unfashionable western spiral arm of the Milky Way. Who would have thought they'd be the ones to make us, the galaxy's finest xeno-medical professionals, question everything we knew about biology? But here we are, gathered around an operating table, staring slack-jawed, well, those of us with jaws, at a sight that would make even the most jaded Zorgon bartender spill his hypernova highball. Let me set the scene for you, dear listener. Picture, if you will, the pristine halls of the Galactic Central Hospital, its walls gleaming with a sheen that would make a Mercury's surface look like a dusty old attic. The air? So clean you could perform open-heart surgery on a Fluberian dust mite. Not that they have hearts, mind you, but you get the point. Now, zoom in on Operating Theatre 42. Because of course it's 42, the universe does love its little jokes. Inside, you'll find an assortment of the galaxy's most brilliant medical minds. There's Dr. Quibble Fnorp, his 7 eye stalks swiveling in all directions like a grotesque bouquet of periscopes. Next to him, hunched over a console of blinking lights and incomprehensible readouts, is Nurse Slorgax, her tentacles flying over the controls with the grace of a drunken octopus at a rave. And then there's me, Dr. Xylophone Bumblebee. Yes, that's my name, and no, I don't want to talk about it. I'm the one with the iridescent exoskeleton and the look of perpetual confusion etched onto my mandibles. It's an expression I've perfected over years of dealing with the medical mysteries of the universe, but today, it's genuine. Why, you ask? Well, let me tell you about our patient. Strapped to the operating table, and by strapped, I mean loosely draped with what appears to be decorative tinsel because apparently that's all it takes to keep a human in place, is one Jonathan, just call me Johnny Smith. Now, Johnny here isn't your average human. Oh no, that would be far too simple for the universe's twisted sense of humour. Johnny is what humans call a Florida man, a subspecies so baffling that even other humans regard them with a mixture of awe and terror. Johnny's medical chart reads like a comedy of errors written by a particularly sadistic god with a fondness for slapstick. Previous injuries include, but are not limited to, alligator-related misunderstandings, multiple occurrences, ill-advised firework experiments, and my personal favourite, hammock installation gone horribly wrong. But today's reason for admission takes the cake, frosting, candles, and the entire bakery. You see, Johnny here decided it would be a brilliant idea to try and high-five a spaceship. Yes, you heard that right. A spaceship. In flight. Now, I know what you're thinking. But Dr. Xylophone, and again, please don't ask about the name, how does one even attempt such a feat? Well, dear listener, according to Johnny's rather colourful explanation, which involved a lot of gesticulating and sounds effects that I'm pretty sure humans don't usually make, it involved a homemade jetpack, a case of something called Pabst Blue Ribbon, and a dare from his buddy Cletus. The result? Johnny's right arm, from the elbow down, is currently orbiting Earth as the world's most morbid satellite. So here we are, the galaxy's finest medical professionals, gathered around this human who, by all accounts, should be a cautionary tale about the dangers of combining low intelligence with high enthusiasm. Our mission? Reattach his arm. Simple enough, right? We've reattached limbs on thousands of species. Piece of cake. Plus lax 5,000. A dab of Insta-Heal. Maybe a sprinkle of Bone Be Gone for good measure. And voila. Good as new. Except we can't, because Johnny's arm, remember, is currently enjoying a lovely view of Earth from about 200 miles up. No problem, says Dr. Quibble Fnorp, his eye stalks doing that unsettling dance they do when he's feeling smug. We'll just grow him a new one. And that, my friends, is where our tale takes a turn for the bizarre. You see, we've perfected the art of limb regeneration for most species in the galaxy. Zagorbacks can regrow an entire body from a single toenail clipping. Flurbians shed and regrow limbs as casually as humans change their socks, a disgusting habit if you ask me. Even the notoriously slow-healing Plutonians can sprout a new appendage in a matter of weeks. But humans? Humans are special. And not in the, oh, how delightful and unique way, more in the, who in their right mind designed this hot mess body way. Their bodies are a paradox wrapped in an enigma, deep-fried in irony, and served with a side of what the actual quasar. They can't regrow limbs, but they can regrow liver tissue. They're susceptible to the common cold, yet some of them can survive falling out of planes without a parachute. They're simultaneously fragile and indestructible, and it makes absolutely no sense. So when Dr. Quibble-Fnorp confidently declares we'll just grow him a new one, I can't help but laugh. It comes out as a series of clicks and whistles, but trust me, in my species, that's hysterical laughter. Grow him a new one? I chittered incredulously. Quibble, my dear colleague, have you been sniffing Jupiterian swamp gas again? Humans don't regrow limbs. It's like expecting a Vogon to write good poetry or a gargantuan slug to win a sprint race. It just doesn't happen. But Quibble-Fnorp, bless his gelatinous heart, is nothing if not persistent. His eye stalks do that little wiggle that always reminds me of a bunch of worms having a dance-off. Ah, but that's where you're wrong, my exoskeletal friend. I've been studying human biology as a hobby, and I've made a fascinating discovery. Now let me tell you something about Dr. Quibble-Fnorp. His hobbies are legendary in the medical community, and not in a good way. His last hobby involved trying to teach quantum physics to a species of sentient moss. The moss ended up with an existential crisis, and we had to call in a team of botanical therapists. So, you'll forgive me if I was a tad skeptical. Oh, really? I said, my mandibles clicking in what I hoped was a suitably sarcastic manner. And what, pray tell, is this fascinating discovery? Have you found a way to harness the power of human stupidity as a regenerative force? Because if so, our friend Johnny here should be sprouting extra limbs any second now. Nurse Zlorgax let out a gurgling sound that might have been a laugh, or possibly indigestion. It's hard to tell with Zlorgaxians. But Quibble-Fnorp was undeterred. His eye stalks quivered with excitement as he launched into his explanation. You see, humans have this remarkable ability called neuroplasticity. Their brains can rewire themselves, adapting to new situations, and their bodies are full of surprises. Did you know they're constantly regenerating? Skin cells, blood cells, even parts of their organs. They're like walking, talking regeneration machines. They just don't know it yet. I had to admit, Quibble-Fnorp had done his homework. But still, there's a big difference between replacing some skin cells and regrowing an entire arm. I was about to point this out when Johnny, who had been surprisingly quiet up until now, possibly due to the effects of the Pabst Blue Ribbon, decided to join the conversation. Hey, docs? He slurred, his one remaining hand raised like a student asking permission to go to the bathroom. I don't mean to interrupt your little alien powwow, but I got a sort of tingly feeling going on where my arm used to be. Is that normal? 'Cause let me tell you, last time I felt a tingle like this, I ended up with a tattoo of a bald eagle riding a motorcycle on my... Well, never mind where. Point is, tingles usually mean something's happening, and I ain't sure if it's good or bad. We all turned to look at Johnny's stub of an arm, and... Sweet mother of Andromeda. There, before our very eyes, was a sight that defied all logical explanation. The stub was moving, pulsating, changing. Great googly moogly, I exclaimed, because sometimes human expressions are the only ones that truly capture the magnitude of a situation. It's growing! And indeed it was. Like a time-lapse video of a plant sprouting, Johnny's arm was regenerating. Bone extended outward, followed by a spider web of veins and arteries. Muscles knitted themselves together, wrapping around the new skeletal structure. Skin flowed like water, covering the raw flesh. We stood there, a group of supposedly highly educated medical professionals, gaping like a bunch of Betelgeusian codfish. Our collective medical knowledge, gathered from every corner of the galaxy, spanning millennia of scientific advancement, had just been rendered obsolete by a Florida man who thought high-fiving a spaceship was a good idea. Nurse Slorgax was the first to break the stunned silence. "Well, slap me with a Saturnian eel and call me Shirley," she gurgled. "I've seen some weird shit in my time, but this takes the biscuit frosting and the entire damn bakery." Dr. Quibble-Fnorp's eye stalks were practically tied in knots as he tried to observe the phenomenon from every possible angle. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. The rate of cellular regeneration is off the charts. The precision of the regrowth is unprecedented. This changes everything we know about human physiology. I, for my part, was torn between scientific awe and the unsettling feeling that the universe was playing a cosmic joke on us. But how?" I stammered, my mandibles clicking rapidly in agitation. "Humans don't do this! They're not supposed to do this! They get paper cuts and complain for days! They catch colds and act like they're dying! They're not supposed to casually regrow limbs like they're scorebacks or something!" Johnny, meanwhile, seemed remarkably unfazed by the whole situation. He watched his arm regrow with the mild interest of someone watching paint dry. "Huh," he said, flexing his newly formed fingers. "That's pretty neat. Hey, you think this means I can finally win that hot dog eating contest? 2 hands are better than 1, am I right?" I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or submit my resignation from the medical profession right then and there. As we watched in a mixture of horror and fascination, Johnny's arm continued to regenerate. Fingernails sprouted, hair grew, even the pattern of freckles on his original arm reappeared in exactly the same configuration. It was as if his body had some sort of backup system, a biological blueprint that it could reference to rebuild lost parts. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Quibble-Fnorp exclaimed, his eye stalks now so tangled I feared we'd need to perform emergency detangling surgery. "The implications are staggering. Think of the medical applications, the scientific papers, the talk show appearances." Nurse Slorgax, ever the practical one, raised a tentacle. Not to rain on everyone's parade here, but are we sure this is, safe? I mean, for all we know, this could be some kind of weird human defense mechanism. Maybe he's about to explode or something." We all took an instinctive step back from the operating table at that suggestion. All except Johnny, of course, who was now using his brand new arm to scratch his back with evident satisfaction. "Nah, I feel great," Johnny assured us, his grin wide enough to make a Cheshire cat jealous. "Better than great, actually. Say, you fellas got any beer around here? I feel like celebrating." I shared a look with my colleagues, our expressions a mixture of disbelief, awe, and resigned acceptance that the universe was, once again, proving to be far stranger than we could ever imagine. "Well," I said, trying to inject some professionalism back into the situation, "I suppose we should run some tests. Make sure everything is functioning properly." Dr. Quibble-Fnorp nodded enthusiastically, his eye stalks finally untangling themselves. Yes, tests. We need to document everything. This could revolutionize the field of regenerative medicine across the galaxy." And so, for the next few hours, we subjected Johnny to every test we could think of. We scanned, we probed, we took samples, much to Johnny's vocal displeasure. Apparently, humans are not fond of having bits of themselves removed, even if they can apparently regrow them. We ran simulations, analyzed data, and generally did our best to make sense of the medical miracle we had just witnessed. The results were, well, mind-boggling. Doesn't even begin to cover it. Not only had Johnny regrown his arm perfectly, but the new limb was, in many ways, superior to the original. The bone density was higher, the muscle fibers more efficiently arranged. Even the skin seemed more resilient. It was as if his body had taken the opportunity to not just replace the lost limb, but to upgrade it. It's like his cells have some kind of memory, Nurse Zlorgax mused, her tentacles waving in agitation as she reviewed the test results. They didn't just replicate the old arm, they improved on it. It's like they learned from the mistake of losing the arm in the first place, I finished for her, my mandibles clicking in thoughtful contemplation. Dr. Quibble Fnorp was practically vibrating with excitement. This goes beyond mere regeneration. It's adaptive evolution in real time. The human body didn't just replace what was lost, it created a better version to prevent future loss. It's Florida Man's revenge, Johnny supplied helpfully, flexing his new bicep with evident pride. That's what we'll call it. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? We all stared at him for a moment, then burst into laughter. Because really, what else could we do? We had just witnessed something that defied all our medical knowledge, all our understanding of human biology, and it had been triggered by a man who thought it was a good idea to high-five a spaceship. As our laughter died down, replaced by a sort of giddy, stunned silence, I couldn't help but reflect on the implications of what we'd just witnessed. If humans could do this, if they could not only regenerate lost limbs, but improve upon them in the process, what else were they capable of? What other hidden abilities might they possess, just waiting for the right, or perhaps monumentally wrong, circumstances to manifest? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Humans, with their paradoxical blend of fragility and resilience, their capacity for both stunning stupidity and breathtaking ingenuity, might just be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because of their technology or their military might, but because of their sheer stubborn unpredictability. Well, I said, breaking the contemplative silence that had fallen over the operating theatre, I suppose we should prepare our report for the Galactic Medical Board. Though I'm not entirely sure how to explain this without sounding like we've all lost our minds. Dr. Quibble Fnorp's eye stalks perked up. Oh, don't worry about that. I've already started drafting a paper. I'm thinking of calling it The Florida Effect. Adaptive hyperregeneration in Homo sapiens as triggered by extreme stupidity. Catchy, isn't it? Nurse Zlorgax gurgled in what might have been approval. I couldn't help but chuckle at Dr. Quibble Fnorp's suggested title. Well, it's certainly descriptive, I said, my mandibles clicking in amusement. Though I'm not sure the human scientific community will appreciate the extreme stupidity part. Johnny, who'd been listening to our conversation with surprising attentiveness, perhaps regrowing limbs improved cognitive function as well, piped up. Hey now, don't knock it till you've tried it. Extreme stupidity has gotten me out of more scrapes than you'd believe. Well, into them too, I guess, but that's beside the point. Nurse Zlorgax's tentacles wiggled in what I've come to recognize as her equivalent of an eye roll. Yes, well, be that as it may, we still need to figure out how to proceed. This discovery, it's unprecedented. It could change everything we know about human physiology, about regenerative medicine, about, well, everything. She was right, of course. The implications of what we'd just witnessed were staggering. If humans could regenerate lost limbs, and not just regenerate, but improve upon them, what did that mean for the future of medicine, for the future of humanity itself? Dr. Quibble Fnorp's eye stalks were practically dancing with excitement. Just think of the possibilities, he exclaimed. We could revolutionize trauma care. No more prosthetics, no more long, painful recoveries, just a bit of... What did you call it, Johnny? Florida Man magic? Johnny grinned, flexing his new arm again. You got it, Doc. Florida Man magic. It's like regular magic, but with more alligators and questionable life choices. I found myself chuckling despite the gravity of the situation. There was something oddly endearing about Johnny's carefree attitude in the face of what should have been a traumatic and life-altering event. It was so human. Well, I said, trying to inject some semblance of professionalism back into the proceedings, regardless of what we call it, we need to document this thoroughly. Run more tests, gather more data, We need to understand how this happened, and more importantly, if it can be replicated. Nurse Slorgax nodded, her tentacles already reaching for various medical instruments. Agreed, though I shudder to think what kind of experiments that might entail. We can hardly go around asking humans to volunteer to lose limbs on the off chance they might regrow them. Johnny, who had been watching us with an amused expression, suddenly sat up straighter. "Hey, I got an idea," he exclaimed, his eyes lighting up with the kind of enthusiasm that I was quickly learning usually preceded something either brilliant or catastrophically stupid. With humans, and especially with Johnny, the line between the two seemed remarkably thin. We all turned to look at him, a mixture of curiosity and trepidation on our alien faces. "Yes, Johnny?" I prompted. Not entirely sure I wanted to hear what he had to say, but knowing it was probably going to be important, or at least entertaining. "Well," he began, gesturing expansively with both arms, and wasn't that a sight to see? "You folks said this whole regrowing thing might be triggered by extreme situations, right? Like the body knows it's in deep doo-doo and pulls out all the stops." We nodded cautiously, not quite sure where he was going with this. "So," Johnny continued, his grin widening, "what if we set up some kind of, I don't know, extreme sports event? Get a bunch of adrenaline junkies together, have them do all sorts of crazy stunts. You know, the kind of stuff that's bound to lead to a few missing fingers or toes at least. Then we watch and see if anyone else starts sprouting new bits." There was a moment of stunned silence as we all processed this suggestion. Then, almost in unison, we burst into a cacophony of responses. "Absolutely not," I chittered, my mandibles clicking furiously. "We can't just set up a human demolition derby and hope for the best." "Fascinating idea," Dr. Quibblethorpe exclaimed, his eye stalks waving excitedly. "Think of the data we could gather."
"Are all humans this casually reckless with their physical well-being?" Nurse Slorgax gurgled, her tentacles writhing in what I assumed was a mixture of horror and morbid curiosity.
Johnny, for his part, looked immensely pleased with himself. "See? It's perfect. We'll call it the Extreme Regeneration X Games or something. It'll be a hit." I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. Sometimes, dealing with humans felt like trying to herd a group of particularly enthusiastic and accident-prone kittens. "Johnny," I said, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable, "while your enthusiasm is appreciated, we can't just go around encouraging humans to injure themselves for the sake of scientific discovery. It's unethical, not to mention potentially dangerous." Johnny's face fell a bit, but he rallied quickly. "Oh, come on, Doc. Where's your sense of adventure? Besides, people do way crazier stuff for fun all the time. Ever heard of bull running? Or cheese rolling? Heck, compared to some of the stuff I've seen at the annual Everglades Invitational Gator Wrestling Championship, this would be downright tame." I shared a look with my colleagues, all of us silently wondering if Johnny was joking, or if these were actual events that humans willingly participated in. With humans, it was often hard to tell. Dr. Quibblethorpe, ever the scientist, seemed to be seriously considering Johnny's proposal. "You know," he said thoughtfully, his eye stalks curling in contemplation, "while I agree that we can't ethically set up such an event ourselves, perhaps we could observe existing extreme sports events. Surely, if this regenerative ability is triggered by extreme situations, we might see it manifest in athletes who regularly push their bodies to the limit." I had to admit, it wasn't the worst idea. It was certainly more ethical than intentionally putting humans in harm's way for the sake of our research. "That might actually work," I said slowly, my mandibles clicking in thought. "We could set up a research team to monitor high-risk sporting events, maybe even partner with human medical teams already on site." Nurse Slorgax's tentacles waved in what I'd come to recognize as her equivalent of a nod. "It would certainly give us a larger sample size to work with," she gurgled. "And if we do observe more cases of extraordinary healing, it would help us narrow down the triggers and mechanisms involved." Johnny beamed at us, clearly pleased that his idea had sparked a constructive discussion. "See? I told you it was a good idea. And hey, if you need a volunteer to, test things out, I'm your man. I've been meaning to try my hand at volcano surfing anyway." I chose to ignore that last part for the sake of my own sanity. Instead, I focused on the task at hand. "Right," I said, trying to sound authoritative despite the absurdity of the situation. "Let's draft a proposal for the Galactic Medical Board. We'll need to outline our observations, our hypotheses, and our proposed method of further study." As we set about preparing our report, I couldn't help but marvel at the strange turn our day had taken. We had started out simply trying to reattach a lost limb, and now we were on the brink of what could be one of the most significant medical discoveries in galactic history. All thanks to a human who thought high-fiving a spaceship was a good idea. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and it was just as weird and wonderful as the humans themselves. Over the next few weeks, our lives became a whirlwind of activity. The Galactic Medical Board, after initially dismissing our report as some sort of elaborate practical joke — apparently we weren't the first to fall victim to human-induced incredulity — finally agreed to fund our research. We were given a generous grant and a mandate to investigate this phenomenon further. Our research team, which we affectionately dubbed the Limb Liberation Front, grew to include experts from various fields. We had geneticists studying human DNA for clues, neurologists examining the role of the human nervous system in the regeneration process, and even a few quantum physicists who insisted that there must be some sort of quantum entanglement involved, though between you and me, I think they just wanted an excuse to watch extreme sports on the job. And extreme sports we watched. Oh, did we watch? From the frozen peaks of Earth's tallest mountains to the depths of its most treacherous oceans, we observed humans flinging themselves into one death-defying situation after another. Base jumping, free diving, ultramarathon running across scorching deserts. You name it, we monitored it. Johnny, true to his word, became our unofficial mascot and most enthusiastic test subject. He took to extreme sports like a Zikablaxian to quantum foam, participating in events that made even the most hardened adrenaline junkies pale. Volcano surfing turned out to be the least of our worries. There was the Great Pacific Garbage Patch Freestyle Swim, where Johnny insisted on crossing the infamous trash vortex using nothing but a pair of flippers and a snorkel. Then came the Saharan Sandboard Slam Dunk, which involved snowboarding down sand dunes while attempting to shoot hoops mounted on passing camels. And who could forget the Antarctic Ice Cube Challenge, where participants competed to see who could stay encased in a block of ice the longest. Through it all, we watched and waited, our instruments primed to detect any sign of the miraculous regeneration we had witnessed in that operating theatre. And slowly but surely, patterns began to emerge. It wasn't just Johnny. Other humans, pushed to their absolute limits, began displaying signs of accelerated healing. A skydiver, whose parachute failed to open, walked away with nothing more than a sprained ankle. A freediver emerged from a record-breaking descent with increased lung capacity. A ultramarathon runner's feet, instead of being covered in blisters, developed calloused pads that put even the toughest Gregorian rock treaders to shame. "It's like their bodies are evolving in real time," Dr. Quibblethorpe mused one day, his eye stalks twisted into knots as he pored over the latest data. "They're not just healing, they're adapting, improving. It's as if every brush with death makes them a little bit harder to kill." Nurse Slorgax, who had taken to wearing a protective suit whenever Johnny was in the vicinity, a wise precaution given his penchant for spontaneous and often explosive experiments, gurgled in agreement. "It's fascinating, and more than a little terrifying. If this ability could be harnessed, controlled—" "It could revolutionize medicine as we know it," I finished for her, my mandibles clicking in excitement. "Imagine being able to regrow lost limbs, repair damaged organs, maybe even reverse aging itself." Johnny, who had been listening to our discussion while attempting to juggle several vials of highly unstable compounds, don't ask, chimed in. Hey, does this mean I'm like a superhero now? Ooh, I could be Regeneration Man. No, wait, the Incredible Regrow. Yeah, that's the ticket. We all turned to stare at him, a mixture of fondness and exasperation on our alien faces. In many ways, Johnny had become the embodiment of everything we found baffling and endearing about humans. Their recklessness, their resilience, their boundless enthusiasm in the face of, well, pretty much anything. Johnny, I said, trying to keep my voice level, please put down the highly volatile substances before you... I never got to finish that sentence. There was a bright flash, a loud bang, and suddenly the lab was filled with thick purple smoke that smelled oddly of bananas and feet. As the smoke cleared, we saw Johnny standing there, his hair singed, his eyebrows missing, but otherwise unharmed. And was it my imagination, or did his hair seem to be growing back before our very eyes? Wow! Johnny exclaimed, patting himself down in amazement. Did you see that? I didn't even lose a finger this time. I'm getting better at this. Dr. Quibble Fnorp's eye stalks were practically tied in knots as he rushed to examine Johnny. Incredible. The rate of cellular regeneration is off the charts. Your hair follicles are already producing new growth, and... is that a new set of eyebrows coming in? Nurse Zlorgax, safely ensconced in her protective suit, was already taking readings with a handheld scanner. Vital signs are stable? No, wait, they're better than stable. Heart rate optimal, blood oxygen levels increased, even his bone density seems to have improved. I stood there, watching this scene unfold, and felt a laugh bubble up from deep inside me. It came out as a series of rapid clicks and whistles, causing my colleagues to turn and look at me in surprise. Don't you see? I said, still chuckling. This is humanity in a nutshell. They fall down, they get up. They get hurt, they heal. And somehow, against all odds, they come out stronger on the other side. It's not just biology, it's their entire approach to existence. Johnny grinned, striking a heroic pose despite the fact that his hair was still smoking slightly. You got that right, Doc. We humans don't know when to quit. It's our superpower. And in that moment, looking at this ridiculous, wonderful, impossibly resilient human, I realized something profound. We had set out to study human biology, to unravel the mystery of their unexpected regenerative abilities. But in the process, we had stumbled upon something far more significant. We had discovered the true strength of humanity, not in their bodies, remarkable as they were, but in their spirit, their unbreakable, unshakable determination to not just survive, but to thrive, to take every setback, every injury, every near-death experience, and turn it into an opportunity for growth. As I looked around at my fellow researchers, I could see the same realization dawning in their eyes, or eye stalks, or sensory tentacles, as the case may be. We had come seeking to understand human biology, but we had ended up learning far more about the human spirit. And somehow, I had a feeling that this was just the beginning. That humanity, with its endless capacity for adaptation and its boundless enthusiasm for pushing boundaries, was destined for great things. That perhaps, in their own weird and wonderful way, they might just be the key to unlocking the next stage of evolution for all sentient beings in the galaxy. As if to punctuate this thought, Johnny suddenly let out an excited whoop. Hey guys, check it out! I think I just grew an extra toe. Anyone up for some six-toed tap dancing? I sighed, my mandibles clicking in a mixture of exasperation and fondness. Yes, humanity was destined for great things indeed. Assuming, of course, they didn't blow themselves up first. But then again, even if they did, they'd probably just grow back stronger than ever. The universe, it seemed, had no idea what it was in for. And honestly, Neither did we. But I, for one, couldn't wait to find out.